The phone rang, and even before I saw the caller ID, I knew it was Liam. My brother, my blood. But right now, the source of a tidal wave threatening to drown me. I took a breath, steeling myself, and answered. "Hey," I said, trying for neutral. "He's coming." Liam's voice was tight, strained. It was enough to know he was talking about his son, my nephew, 13-year-old Caleb. "Coming where?" I asked, even though I already knew the answer. "Here. To you." I can't handle this, Maya. The crack in his voice was like a physical blow. "He needs help. Real help." And I'm failing him. My heart clenched. I loved Liam, despite his flaws, despite the impulsive decisions that often left a trail of chaos in his wake. He was my older brother, the one who'd taught me to ride a bike, who'd defended me from bullies, who'd always been my rock. But this was different. This was about Caleb, a boy teetering on the edge, consumed by a darkness I couldn't fully comprehend. "What happened, Liam? Tell me everything." My voice was calm, but inside I was a whirlwind of anxiety. He hesitated. Then the words came tumbling out, a torrent of guilt, fear, and desperation. He told me about the outburst, the venom Caleb had spewed at his step-siblings, Lily and Owen, innocent kids barely out of preschool. Hateful words, wishes for their death, a volcanic eruption of rage that had shaken Liam to his core. He described the aftermath, the hours spent trying to calm Caleb, only to be met with more anger, more accusations, more pain. "He hates them, Maya," Liam finally choked out. "He really hates them. And I don't know what to do." I closed my eyes. The image of Caleb, a sweet, goofy kid I hadn't seen in far too long, twisting my gut. I remembered his face at Liam's wedding, a mixture of joy and apprehension, the subtle shadows that had hinted at the storm brewing within him. We'd talked that day, but I dismissed his worries, chalking them up to typical kid anxieties. Now, I felt a crushing weight of guilt. "Liam, listen to me," I said, forcing strength into my voice. "We'll take him. Mark and I will. We'll do whatever it takes." There was a long silence on the other end of the line, broken only by Liam's ragged breathing. "Are you sure, Maya? This isn't going to be easy." Easy? Nothing about this felt easy. My life with Mark was comfortable, predictable. We'd built a good life for ourselves, a quiet sanctuary away from the drama of our families. Now, that sanctuary was about to be shattered. "I'm sure," I said, the words a promise not just to Liam, but to Caleb and to myself. "We'll figure it out." He told me that he would arrange everything, virtual school, a therapist, and send weekly payments to cover all expenses. The relief in his voice was palpable. A weight lifted from his shoulders and settled squarely on mine. The drive to pick Caleb up was agonizing. Every mile felt like a step closer to the unknown, a leap into a void. Mark, my husband, sat beside me, his hand resting on my knee. He hadn't said much since Liam's call, but his presence was a steady anchor in the swirling sea of my emotions. "He's going to be okay, Maya," Mark said, his voice gentle but firm. "We're going to help him." I nodded, but doubt gnawed at me. Could we really do this? Could we navigate the complexities of a teenage boy consumed by anger? Could we give him the love and support he desperately needed, without sacrificing our own well-being? When we finally pulled up to Liam's house, a familiar knot tightened in my stomach. It had been too long. The house looked different somehow. More lived in, more complete. A family home. A home that wasn't Caleb's anymore. Liam was waiting for us on the porch, his face etched with worry. He looked older, more worn than I remembered. He was holding a duffel bag, Caleb's. My stomach turned. Caleb stood behind him, his shoulders hunched, his eyes downcast. He was taller than I remembered, his face sharper, harder. The sweet, goofy kid was gone. "Hey, buddy," I said, forcing a smile. "It's good to see you." He mumbled a greeting, barely making eye contact. He looked like he'd aged 10 years. The goodbye was brief and awkward. Liam hugged Caleb tightly, whispering something in his ear. Caleb remained stiff, unresponsive. As he pulled away, Liam's eyes met mine, pleading. "Help him," they seemed to say. Caleb walked to the car, avoiding my gaze, and climbed into the back seat. The silence in the car was thick, heavy with unspoken emotions. As we pulled away from Liam's house, I glanced in the rearview mirror. He was still standing on the porch, watching us go, his face a mask of anguish. This was it. We were in it. I had a feeling this was going to break us. The first few days were a blur of tentative conversations, awkward silences, and a palpable tension that hung in the air like a storm cloud. Caleb was withdrawn, sullen. He spent most of his time in his room, the door firmly closed, emerging only for meals, which he ate in silence, his eyes fixed on his plate. Mark tried to connect with him, suggesting video games, hikes, anything to break through the wall he'd erected around himself. But Caleb remained resistant, offering only monosyllabic answers and dismissive shrugs. "He's grieving, Maya," Mark said one evening, as we sat in the living room after Caleb had retreated to his room. "He's lost his family, his sense of belonging." I knew Mark was right, but it didn't make it any easier. I felt like I was walking on eggshells, afraid to say or do anything that might trigger another outburst. I cooked his favorites. I left snacks in his room. I asked him about school. "Nothing. He's shutting us out," I said, frustration creeping into my voice. "He doesn't want to be here." Mark sighed, running a hand through his hair. "It's going to take time, Maya. We have to be patient." Patience. That was the word everyone kept using. But how much patience did I have? How much could I give before I cracked? One afternoon, I decided to try a different approach. I knocked on Caleb's door. "Caleb? Can I come in?" There was a long pause, then a muffled, "Yeah, whatever." I opened the door and stepped inside. His room was a mess. Clothes strewn across the floor, empty soda cans littering the desk. He was sitting on the bed, staring at his phone, earbuds blasting music. "Hey," I said, trying to sound casual. "Just wanted to see how you were doing." He shrugged, not bothering to remove his earbuds. I sat down on the edge of the bed, taking a deep breath. "I know this isn't easy, Caleb. Being here, away from your dad." He finally looked up, his eyes hard, challenging. "You don't know anything." The words stung, but I refused to back down. "I know you're hurting," I said, my voice soft but firm. "I know you're angry, and I know you feel like no one understands." He scoffed, turning away. "That's because no one does." "Then help me understand," I pleaded. "Tell me what you're feeling. Tell me what's going on inside your head." He was silent for a long moment, then he finally spoke, his voice barely a whisper. "He doesn't care about me anymore." The words hit me like a punch to the gut. This was it, the core of his pain, the root of his anger. "Who, Caleb? Your dad?" He nodded, tears welling up in his eyes. "He only cares about them, about Lily and Owen. I'm just in the way." I reached out and took his hand, surprised when he didn't pull away. His hand was cold, clammy. "That's not true, Caleb," I said, my voice thick with emotion. "Your dad loves you. He may not be showing it the way you want him to, but he does." "No, he doesn't," he insisted, his voice rising. "He used to, but not anymore. He replaced me with them." The raw pain in his voice was heartbreaking. I wanted to tell him everything would be okay, that things would get better, but I couldn't lie to him. I didn't know if they would. I just held his hand, letting him cry, letting him feel his pain, letting him know that he wasn't alone. That night, after Caleb had finally fallen asleep, I sat in the living room with Mark, the silence broken only by the ticking of the clock. "He's really hurting, Mark," I said, my voice heavy with worry. "I don't know if we can fix this." Mark put his arm around me, pulling me close. "We don't have to fix it, Maya," he said gently. "We just have to be there for him. We have to show him that we care, that he's not alone." I leaned into him, drawing strength from his warmth. his unwavering support. But even as I did, a seed of doubt began to sprout in my mind. Was that enough? Was our love, our support, enough to pull Caleb back from the brink? The answer, I suspected, was more complicated than I wanted to admit. Doctor. Evan's office was sterile, impersonal. Beige walls, generic artwork, and the faint scent of antiseptic. It felt more like a dentist's office than a place for healing. Caleb sat slumped in a chair across from me, his eyes darting around the room, avoiding any eye contact. So, Caleb, doctor, Evan said, her voice calm and professional. How are you settling in with Maya and Mark? Caleb shrugged, his standard response to any question he didn't want to answer. He's adjusting, I said, stepping in to fill the silence. It's been a bit of a transition, doctor. Evans nodded, turning her attention back to Caleb. Have you been able to talk to them about how you're feeling? He shook his head. Why not? She asked, her tone gentle. What's the point? He mumbled. They wouldn't understand, doctor. Evans sighed, leaning back in her chair. Caleb, the only way we can help you is if you're willing to be honest with us, to tell us what's going on inside your head. He remained silent, his jaw clenched. I could feel the tension radiating off him. Caleb, I said, reaching out and taking his hand. Please, just try. For me. He looked at me, his eyes filled with a mixture of anger and vulnerability. After a long moment, he finally spoke. I hate them, he said, his voice barely audible. I hate Lily and Owen. I wish they were never born. The words hung in the air, heavy and toxic. Doctor! Evans remained unfazed, her expression neutral. Why do you feel that way, Caleb? She asked. Because they stole my dad, he said, his voice rising. He used to be mine. All mine. And now he spends all his time with them. He plays with them, reads them stories, tucks them into bed. He never does that with me anymore. Tears streamed down his face as he spoke, his body shaking with sobs. I wanted to reach out and comfort him, but I knew I had to let him feel his pain, to let him express his anger. Do you think your dad loves Lily and Owen more than he loves you, doctor? Evans asked. He nodded, his voice choked with emotion. I know he does. He tells them he loves them all the time. He never tells me anymore, doctor. Evans looked at me, her expression questioning. He's been saying that a lot, I said, my voice hesitant. I tried to reassure him, but you're not sure, doctor. Evans finished, her eyes meeting mine. I looked away, guilt washing over me. The truth was, I wasn't sure. I'd seen the way Liam interacted with Lily and Owen, the way he showered them with affection, the way his face lit up when he was around them. I hadn't seen that same spark when he was with Caleb. After a long silence, doctor, Evans spoke again. Caleb, it's okay to feel angry. It's okay to feel jealous. But it's not okay to act on those feelings in a way that hurts others. He nodded, wiping his tears with the back of his hand. We need to find healthy ways for you to express your anger. Doctor, Evans continued. Ways that don't involve hurting yourself or others. She then suggested different coping mechanisms and healthy distractions. But Caleb looked uninterested. I wasn't sure this was working. After the session, as we walked to the car, Caleb was silent, withdrawn. I didn't push him to talk, knowing he needed time to process everything. What did you think? I asked as we drove away. Caleb shrugged. It was okay, I guess. Do you think it helped? He hesitated, then shook his head. Not really. I sighed, frustration building inside me. We'd been seeing Dr. Evans for weeks, and I didn't see any improvement. Caleb was still angry, still withdrawn, still consumed by his pain. That evening, Liam called. How was the session? He asked, his voice anxious. It was okay, I said, hedging. But I'm not sure it's really helping. Liam sighed, his voice heavy with frustration. I don't know what to do, Maya. I'm trying, but I know, Liam, I said, my heart aching for him. I know you are, doctor. Evans suggested something. he said, his voice hesitant. Something I'm not sure I can do. What is it? I asked, my stomach churning with anticipation. She thinks it would be good for Caleb if I brought Lily and Owen to a session. So they can talk. So he can see that I love them all. The words hit me like a slap in the face. It was a terrible idea. A disaster waiting to happen. Liam, that's insane, I said, my voice rising. You can't do that. It'll only make things worse. I don't know what else to do, Maya, he said, his voice desperate. I'm running out of options. There has to be another way, I insisted. We can find another therapist. We can try different strategies. But bringing Lily and Owen into this, it's too risky. Maybe it's a risk I have to take, he said, his voice firm. For Caleb. I hung up the phone, my hands shaking. I couldn't believe Liam was considering this. It was a recipe for disaster. I knew I had to do something. I couldn't let him make this mistake. But what could I do? How could I stop him from potentially shattering Caleb even further? I had a feeling I was about to find out. The next day, Liam called again, his voice tight with determination. I'm doing it, Maya. I'm bringing them on Saturday. Liam, please don't, I begged, my voice trembling. Think about what you're doing. You're putting innocent kids in the middle of this. They're not innocent, Maya, he snapped. They're the reason Caleb is like this. They're the reason my family is falling apart. His words were like a knife twisting in my gut. He was blaming them, blaming innocent children for his own failings as a father. That's not fair, Liam, I said, my voice shaking with anger. They're just kids. They didn't ask for any of this. Then what am I supposed to do, Maya? He yelled. Tell me! What am I supposed to do? I was silent for a moment, searching for the right words. You need to focus on Caleb, I finally said. You need to show him that you love him, that he matters. You need to be a father to him, not just a provider. I am trying, he shouted. But it's not enough. He hates me, Maya. He really hates me. He doesn't hate you, Liam, I said, my voice softer now. He's just hurting. He's scared. He needs you. He hung up without another word. I spent the next few days in a state of near constant anxiety. I couldn't eat. I couldn't sleep. I just kept replaying the conversation with Liam in my head, wondering if I could have said something different, something that would have changed his mind. Saturday morning arrived like a death sentence. I knew what was going to happen, and I felt powerless to stop it. Mark tried to reassure me, but I was beyond comforting. This is going to be a disaster, Mark, I said, pacing the living room. I can feel it. Maybe it won't be as bad as you think, he said, his voice calm. You don't know Liam, I said, shaking my head. He's going to say the wrong thing, do the wrong thing. And Caleb is going to explode. As if on cue, the doorbell rang. My heart leaped into my throat. I took a deep breath and opened the door. Liam stood on the porch, holding Lily and Owen's hands. They looked small and vulnerable, their eyes wide with apprehension. Caleb was behind me, his face a mask of anger. He glared at his step-siblings, his fists clenched at his sides. What are they doing here? He demanded, his voice dripping with venom. I wanted you all to talk, Liam said, his voice hesitant. To clear the air, Caleb scoffed. There's nothing to talk about. I hate them. I wish they would just go away. Lily started to cry, burying her face in Liam's leg. Owen clung to his other hand, his eyes wide with fear. Caleb, don't, I said, my voice pleading. They're just kids. They're the reason Dad doesn't love me anymore. He spat. Liam stepped forward, his face flushed with anger. That's not true, Caleb. I love you. I love all of you. No, you don't, Caleb yelled. You love them more. You always have. That's not fair, Caleb, Liam said, his voice rising. I try to treat you all the same. You don't, Caleb insisted. You're always hugging them, kissing them, telling them how much you love them. You never do that with me. That's because you're older, Liam said, his voice defensive. You don't need that kind of attention anymore. Yes, I do, Caleb shouted. I need it more than them. I need you to show me that you still care. The words hung in the air, raw and vulnerable. I could see the pain in Caleb's eyes, the desperate need for his father's love. Liam looked at Caleb, his face softening. I do care, Caleb, he said, his voice gentle. I care about you more than anything in the world. Then show me, Caleb challenged, his voice trembling. Show me that you mean it. Liam hesitated, then stepped forward and wrapped his arms around Caleb. Caleb remained stiff, unresponsive. I love you, Caleb, Liam whispered. I always have, and I always will. Caleb finally broke down, tears streaming down his face. He hugged Liam back, clinging to him tightly. It was a moment of fragile connection, a glimmer of hope in the darkness. But I knew it wasn't enough. There was still so much pain, so much anger, so much unresolved hurt. As they hugged, Lily tugged on Liam's sleeve. Daddy? She said, her voice small and tearful. I want a hug too. Liam pulled away from Caleb and knelt down, hugging Lily and Owen. I love you both too, he said, his voice thick with emotion. But as he hugged them, I saw something in Caleb's eyes. A flicker of resentment, a spark of jealousy. The moment of connection had shattered, replaced by the familiar pain of feeling left out. Replaced. I knew then that this wasn't going to work. That bringing Lily and Owen into this had been a mistake. That we were further away than ever, and that it was up to me to fix it. Later that evening, after Liam had taken Lily and Owen home and Caleb had retreated to his room, I confronted Liam. What the hell was that, Liam? I demanded, my voice trembling with anger. I was trying to help, he said, his voice defensive. You were making things worse, I retorted. You were putting innocent kids in the middle of your own messed up family dynamics. I don't know what you want from me, Maya, he said, his voice rising. I'm doing the best I can. You're not doing enough, I snapped. You're not being a father to Caleb. You're just trying to make yourself feel better. That's not fair, he said, his face flushed with anger. It's the truth, Liam, I said, my voice shaking. You're so focused on Lily and Owen, on trying to be the perfect stepdad, that you've forgotten about Caleb. You've forgotten about his needs, his feelings, his pain. He was silent for a moment, his eyes filled with hurt. I haven't forgotten about him, Maya, he finally said, his voice barely a whisper. I just don't know how to reach him anymore. Then try harder, I said, my voice softer now. He needs you, Liam. He needs you to be his father. Not just sometimes, but all the time. I don't know if I can, he said, his voice filled with despair. You have to, I insisted, for Caleb's sake, for your own sake. He looked at me, his eyes filled with a mixture of hope and fear. What do I do, Maya? He asked. Tell me what to do. I took a deep breath, knowing that what I was about to say would change everything. You need to tell Sarah, I said, my voice firm. Tell Sarah what? He asked, his brow furrowed. The truth, I said. You need to tell her that you're not happy, that you're not in love with her, that you're only staying with her for the kids. The shock on his face was palpable. I can't do that, Maya, he said, his voice trembling. I can't hurt her like that. You're hurting her more by staying with her when you don't love her, I said. And you're hurting Caleb even more. He knows you're not happy. He can feel it. And it's tearing him apart. He was silent for a long moment, his eyes filled with turmoil. I don't know what to do, he finally said, his voice filled with despair. You need to be honest, Liam, I said, my voice firm. With yourself, with Sarah, with Caleb. You need to face the truth, no matter how painful it may be, because the longer you wait, the worse it's going to get. He looked at me, his eyes filled with fear. I'm scared, Maya, he said. I don't know what's going to happen if I tell her the truth. I know, I said, reaching out and taking his hand. But you have to be brave, Liam. For Caleb's sake, for your own sake. He squeezed my hand tightly, his eyes filled with tears. I don't know if I can do this, he said, his voice trembling. Yes, you can, I said, my voice firm. I believe in you, Liam. You're stronger than you think. He looked at me, his eyes filled with a flicker of hope. Thank you, Maya, he said, his voice barely a whisper. I knew that this was just the beginning, that the road ahead would be long and difficult. But I also knew that it was the only way to save Caleb, the only way to save Liam, the only way to save our family. The days that followed were a whirlwind of emotion. Liam finally told Sarah the truth, and as I suspected, it did not go well. There were tears, recriminations, and a lot of shouting. I'm sure Caleb heard every word, but she understood that it had nothing to do with the children. It just wasn't working and hadn't been for some time. It was better for everyone if they ended things now rather than drag it out. He moved out. He was honest with Caleb, explaining that while he cared for Sarah, he wasn't in love with her and needed to be true to himself. He reassured Caleb that this decision had nothing to do with him and that he loved him very much. Caleb took it surprisingly well. I think a part of him already knew, sensed the tension between Liam and Sarah. He seemed relieved, almost. It was as if a weight had been lifted from his shoulders. Liam started spending more time with Caleb, taking him to movies, playing video games, just talking. He made a conscious effort to be present, to listen, to show Caleb that he cared. I saw a change in Caleb almost immediately. He was still angry, still hurting, but he was also more open, more willing to talk. He started smiling again, laughing, engaging with Mark and me. We continued with therapy, but Dr. Evans suggested that Liam join the sessions as well. It was difficult at first, but Liam was committed to making it work. He opened up about his own struggles, his own insecurities, his own fears. He admitted that he had been so focused on trying to create a perfect family with Sarah and her children that he had neglected Caleb. He apologized for not being there for him, for not showing him the love and attention he deserved. Caleb listened, his eyes filled with tears. He didn't say much, but I could see that he was hearing Liam, that he was starting to understand. The sessions became a safe space for them to communicate, to express their feelings, to work through their issues. It was a slow, painful process, but it was also incredibly healing. One evening, after a particularly intense therapy session, Caleb came to me. Aunt Maya, he said, his voice hesitant, can I talk to you? Of course, sweetie, I said, pulling him into a hug. We sat down on the couch, and he began to speak, his voice trembling. He told me about his anger, his jealousy, his fear. He told me about how much he missed his old life, how much he hated Lily and Owen for taking his dad away from him. I know it's not their fault, he said, tears streaming down his face. But I can't help it. I just hate them. I held him close, letting him cry, letting him feel his pain. I didn't try to fix it, didn't try to offer solutions. I just listened, letting him know that I was there for him, that I understood. After a while, he calmed down. He pulled away from me, wiping his tears with the back of his hand. I don't want to hate them, he said, his voice barely a whisper. I want to be happy for my dad. I want to be a good brother to them. I know you do, sweetie, I said, my voice gentle. It's going to take time, but you'll get there. You just need to be patient with yourself. He nodded, his eyes filled with a glimmer of hope. Thank you, Aunt Maya, he said, for everything. Anytime, Caleb, I said, squeezing his hand. Anytime. The road to healing was long and arduous, filled with ups and downs, setbacks and triumphs. But slowly, surely, Caleb began to heal. He started to let go of his anger, his resentment, his fear. He started to embrace his new life, his new family. He even started to warm up to Lily and Owen, playing with them, helping them with their homework, even babysitting them on occasion. It wasn't perfect, but it was progress. Liam also started to heal. He learned to be a better father, a more present father, a more loving father. He realized that he couldn't fix everything, that he couldn't make everything perfect, but he could be there for Caleb. He could support him. He could love him unconditionally. He started dating again, but he was careful, deliberate. He knew that he needed to find someone who understood his situation, someone who accepted Caleb, someone who wouldn't try to come between them. One day, Liam came to me with a big smile on his face. "I met someone, Maya," he said. "Her name is Jessica, and she's amazing." He told me about Jessica, about how kind and compassionate she was, about how much she loved kids, about how supportive she was of his relationship with Caleb. I met Jessica a few weeks later, and I was immediately impressed. She was warm, genuine, and genuinely interested in getting to know Caleb. Caleb liked her too. He was cautious at first, but he soon warmed up to her. He could see that she made Liam happy, that she wasn't trying to replace his mom, that she just wanted to be a part of their lives. A few months later, Liam asked Jessica to marry him. Caleb was ecstatic. He even helped them plan the wedding. The wedding was a beautiful, joyous occasion. Caleb stood by Liam's side as his best man, his face beaming with pride. He gave a heartfelt speech, expressing his love for Liam and Jessica, and thanking them for being such amazing parents. As I watched them, I couldn't help but feel a sense of hope, a sense of optimism. We had been through so much. We had faced so many challenges, but we had come out stronger, more resilient, more united. Caleb was still angry, still hurting, but I knew that he was on the right path, that he was learning to heal, to forgive, to love. And I knew that with the love and support of his family, he would be okay. As for Liam and Sarah, things are civil and co-parenting is working, but there are days that are hard. They manage and focus on the children. The arrangement of Caleb staying with Mark and I became permanent. Our lives had changed forever, but in a way, they had also become more meaningful, more fulfilling. We had learned the true meaning of family, the true power of love, the true importance of forgiveness, and we knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, we would face them together as a family. A broken family, perhaps, but a family nonetheless, and that was all that mattered. The end.